Welcome in, everybody, to BettingPros, and it is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia. We got a great show for you today. If you can believe it, we're already a quarter of the way through the Major League Baseball season, and it's time to take some temperatures. So we're going to take a look at some MLB bets thanks to BettingPros consensus numbers. We're going to take a look at the World Series. We're going to take a look at division winners. We're even going to take a look at some MLB awards with a very special guest and good friend of mine. You can see him every single Sunday on SportsGrid with me, Joey P, for the last year. How he put up with me for an entire year plus every single Sunday of his life, nobody knows. You can also check him out on the Bettors Eye, which is a new show on MLB.com. It's also made appearances on MLB Network and some other cool MLB Advanced Media where they go through the best bets of the day. And you may also remember him and see him currently in the wrestling world, calling matches on Impact Wrestling. And of course, he was a WWE superstar, but he's always a superstar in my heart. He's the one, the only Matt Stryker. Matty, bonus time with me. What kind of bet did you lose? That's the question.
In the glowing accolades, you forgot to include friend. But fair enough, man. Out of all the things I've achieved in my life, I think I'm having the most fun right now. Baseball betting is the thing. Everyone is accepting it. States are understanding it. And I think just as a society, collectively, we're looking at it differently. This is fun. And this can be done well if you have some inside information. So I'm down, man.
Absolutely. And you know what? I should have led with friend, but I usually like embarrassing you in public too. Yet I missed this opportunity. I'll be sure on Sunday to do it again. But Matt and I do a show every Sunday together. If you love this kind of banter on SportsGrid from 8 to 10 a.m. every single weekend, recapping the week that was in Major League Baseball and looking ahead. And I think that new show you've got right now, The Bettors Eye, is terrific. You and Keith do a phenomenal job on it. I have seen it. You guys are crushing it. And like Matt said, I mean, betting on baseball now is such an acceptable thing, which is such a culture shock. I don't know about you, but coming from this world where, betting on baseball was such taboo to now on the bottom of MLB Network, when you get the starting pitchers, you get the lines for the games. Yeah. Isn't that a little culture shock for you too?
Yes and no. Again, as a society, we're moving to systemically remove things that we interpret to be systemic, pardon me. So with that said, there's good and bad in everything. But when you look at the joy of wagering on baseball, using math, using knowledge, using fandom, there is nothing backroom about it. There is nothing wrong with it. So I think with that regard, if that's the culture shock, then good. Let that shock dissipate. It's about knowing that player A really hits that slider 73% of the time, and pitcher A really throws that slider. Here's some money on math.
Money on math from the teacher, from the former professor. I love that. Money on math. That's going to be his new hashtag and all this stuff on social. Write it down. Get it in there. All right. Let's start with some player futures here for MVP, and we'll start in the American League. The consensus betting pros number is plus 160 for Mike Trout. He is still the favorite and still a wide favorite at that. It varies in place to place, but typically 160 is about that number you're getting. You're getting Shohei Ohtani now, creeping in as the number 2 consensus at plus 700, Vlad Guerrero at 10-1, and then Giancarlo Stanton after this incredible hot 2 weeks that he's put together at plus 18. Now, Stanton would be a great story for MVP, but we all know the injuries are a concern. Byron Buxton, just a week ago before his injury, was actually the number 2 or 3 guy. And my guy, Shohei Ohtani, still sticking around. Now, I know he's got to start tonight. We'll see how that goes. But is it still Trout or the field for you? And is there somebody in the field that you think right now is set up as a good wager? Is it Ohtani because he's so unique at 7-1?
So I was real excited when you texted me to tell me the content of this discussion, because when you make futures, especially on divisional winners, and we're going to talk about that, I have a particular system that I've used that seems to work. As far as individual awards, yes, you have your chalk guys, and yes, you can throw down on them at the beginning of the season, a quarter way through the season, halfway through the season, so on and so forth, barring injury. But this is such a fickle category. You mentioned Ohtani. No one really had a grasp on what this was going to look like, and we still don't, because the pitching is still in question, and that definitely lends itself to this conversation. A guy like Vlad Guerrero is a guy that I think people would be looking at before a first pitch was even thrown, and you're continuing to look at him. Is there anyone else that's creeping up that you can say, maybe, be careful with the maybes? You're giving your money away. Stay chalk in these MVP and Cy Young type of plays until someone really emerges that you didn't see coming. Because again, if you're watching shows like this, chances are you know who these players are. The guy waiting for the bus might not, and that's whose money we're taking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, to me, when Otani was at, I think, 20-1 or 15-1 in most places before the year, that was the time to take a shot on it for sure. You lay 100 on that, that's a lovely return because he has something that nobody else can offer, which is that two-way player thing. It's just a matter of whether or not he can be good enough at both to really make that sort of headway. And it's so ironic that the favorite is the guy on his own team, which we often say, oh, it's so hard to separate when you have two guys on the same team. But right now, Jared Walsh might be the best angel swinging a bat currently, so who knows what's going on. Let's go to the National League side. A little bit of a wrinkle here lately because DeGrom, who you and I have been talking about as a possible MVP candidate, he goes to the IL. But Ronald Acuna is still the favorite, plus 275. DeGrom still consensus around 800. Some places might even take that down depending on the injury right now and wait and see what goes on. Tatis is at plus 850, and then my boy Juan Soto is floated all the way at 10-1. So here's my question. We know this is a narrative award, a media award. Matt Stryker, do you think that this whole Fernando Tatis playing through this shoulder injury, this very intense injury, if the Padres do continue to play well and the Dodgers continue to play under expectations, and let's say something magical happens where the Padres are right there, even in the last week or two of the season with them, is Tatis at plus 850 the way to get in right now on that? Because that is a narrative that certainly plays.
It does, but again, please use logic and not emotion. I grew up with four sisters. Yes, I had to really use that.
How did you ever get where was any of the logic?
And all jokes aside, actually, there are times where ruling with your heart is the right thing to do, but in this regard, it's not. Let's not get philosophical. I think you make a great point here, though. If it continues to be the way it is, and the Padres are there at the end of the conversation, and in a perfect world, both Soto and Acuna are at least somewhere on a portion of someone's tongue in this conversation, then yes, I can certainly see people saying, wow, I got in on Tatis at that number right in the middle of May. I'm the smartest person in the world. The thing about the NL MVP race is that there was always going to be 3 or 4 places where you could put a chip. Now you're trying to narrow it down. There's still 3, maybe 4 places you could put a chip. Let's have this conversation again. Hopefully I'll come back on maybe June 1st, because right now I'm walking past this table and I want to put a chip down. I just don't know where to put that chip. So I've learned in my years on this planet, I put that chip back in my pocket. I wait. Let these players show me something. I can't show them anything.
I don't know if Acuna's done that much to separate himself that much from the herd, which is kind of interesting to me. That's actually, the chalk is the one I like the least amount here. Whereas that's why I kind of go towards Tatis, because, the first week back, everybody was questioning, oh my goodness, is going to work. And then he's been hitting home runs. He looks like Tatis. Maybe 2 hands on the bat is actually a good thing. Who would have thought that?
Fundamentally.
And you know what? And Juan Soto, and fundamentally it is. And then there's Juan Soto at the 10-1 who, right there, he was in the beginning of the season right neck and neck with all these guys. So this is an interesting time, and Matt's kind of right here. National League really hasn't shown itself enough yet where there hasn't been even a clear separator. And the guy that they got at the top, I don't know how much of a separator he is. Speaking of tight races, too, you've got AL Cy Young's pretty tight right now. Plus 150 for Garrett Cole, plus 325 for Shane Bieber, and then plus 450 for Tyler Glasnow with a 10-1 Carlos Rodon, who's got a better ERA than anybody and may indeed be the leader for comeback player of the year. But in your opinion, does he have a shot here at Cy Young? Statistically speaking, he's right there with these guys, if not better in some categories. But Bieber, Cole, Glasnow certainly get a lot more pub, I feel like.
1,000%. Now, your feelings are correct. It goes back. Sometimes ruling with emotion is a good thing. So, but again, look at the calendar, man. Middle of May. If Rodon gives me 16-8 and an ERA under 4 and the no-hitter, and no one else is really lights out, oh my goodness gracious, like for some reason, if Cole or Bieber falter in their last 6 starts, I'm making it up, then maybe. But do you see how far-fetched even
it is.
The illogical pontification is? But interesting on numbers, and this is what I've learned, especially now that betting is becoming more and more public and more people are putting their eyes and their talents on it. Look at Cole's number and look at Bieber's number. It's pretty much double, isn't it?
Yeah,
you mentioned
150 right. Plus 325. It varies in some spots, but you're right.
So think of what the book is saying now. Is that so much on the pitcher, or is it about the win equity and the team that they're on? And if that's the case, is Cleveland who you thought they were in April or March? You have to ask yourself that question. The Yankees are exactly who they're supposed to be in May, so I get why that number's there. But the Bieber thing, it feels too good.
It feels too good. I don't know. I didn't realize that was a problem. I always thought we wanted things to be
it's a
feel
problem,
good
my
and have-
friend.
Oh, it's a problem? Okay.
Yeah.
There's always something. There's always a catch every single time. All right. So when we're looking at the AL Cy Young, and again, this is why you go to Betting Pros, because if you like Bieber, there's some spots like, for instance, on FanDuel, you can get him at plus 380 right now. There's
See,
actually some better odds in
that's
some spots.
great.
And that's why Betting Pros is so good, because you get that opportunity to say, well, okay, I kind of like this. Where can I find the best odds? And again, I encourage everybody to go to bettingpros.com to do that, because that's how you kind of find the best book for the best bet that you want to put out there. Let's move and switch gears here to the National League for a second, if we may. And obviously the National League, DeGrom has been so dominant, but now we have a little bit of a question that's creeped in here with this injury. Now, MRI was clean, they say. They're going to give him a real IL stint instead of trying to short-term it. We'll see if that rectifies the problem. Minus 136, the consensus Betting Pros number for him. Corbin Burns is at 5-1. He is just now coming back from his COVID stint. And then you got basically Trevor Bauer 13-1 and Aaron Nola at 13-1. Now, Aaron Nola has pitched incredibly well this year, and I feel like nobody's really talking about it. It's kind of why the Phillies have hung around at where they have in the standings. And Corbin Burns, we all know how good he's been.
Right.
So right now, is it a matter of wait and see on this DeGrom health, or do you want to take action now and maybe go with somebody not named Jacob DeGrom before possibly this number starts to shrink if DeGrom misses any significant time or struggles on his return?
So this is what the sharps or the smart people in the betting world are talking about. I think it was just yesterday, Keith, myself, and Colin Wilson were talking about it on the Bettors Eye. And yes, now is the time to see where you can get some value. I believe it was Colin brought up, look at Brandon Woodruff maybe for a hot second.
Sure.
See if everything's starting to melt away, who remains standing. I posited Jack Flaherty. His whip is just a tick over 1. I think it's like 1.02 maybe, or maybe not since the last start. But these are some guys that when everyone else falls away, should DeGrom be injured and miss some time, and I don't even want to say it. It's like, don't say no hitter. These are the names you got to start to look at, and they're going to have some nice plus numbers right next to their names. So now's the time to start shopping.
I like it. Shopping, but you put stuff in the cart. Maybe you're not at the checkout yet. Is that what you're saying?
Sure. How many times have you done that? I mean, listen, in college, I used to go shopping under the influence. I'd fill my cart. You get there and you realize, how much money do I have? Do I need 7 boxes of fudge-covered Oreos? Yes. Let's put back the milk and bread. You know what I mean? You choose.
Important choices. Actually, I'm going food shopping right after this show is over. That is,
get me fudge-covered Oreos.
I will pick you up a box for sure. All right, let's switch gears here and talk about some teams, and let's do a little AL East. The Yankees still the favorites at minus 112. The Red Sox plus 350, who've had a really good start that I think surprised a lot of people. Yeah. And then you've got the Blue Jays at 425 and the Rays, who were in the World Series last year, plus 500. Now, the thing with the Rays is you're going to see Luis Patino start to make some more starts here. He's starting actually today, and we'll see how he continues to ramp up if he becomes a guy in that rotation consistently. They can add a Wander Franco. The Blue Jays right now still waiting for their big-time investment, George Springer, to pay dividends. So what do you make of the AL East here? Because the Yankees have gotten back on track, but their pitching is still suspect. I don't think any of these teams has the depth of rotation right now that you really feel good about. So what is the difference maker in this division for you if you're trying to make a wager?
So here's full transparency. This is how I bet division winners, and this is how I've done it ever since I really learned how to do this. So at the start of the season, let's just call $1 a chip, just for ease. I put a chip down on each team I think within a division has a chance. And then I revisit it 4 times a year. So at 40 games, I then make another play. But during the time, every 10 games, I go back and I look at the team. So as for instance, the Yankees, I had a chip down on them on April 1st. After 10 games, I went back and looked. I put an X next to them because they weren't performing the way I wanted them to. Go, and after another 10 games, maybe they are, you put a check next to them. Come 40 games, the team that I originally had intended upon has as many checks upon it as it should. I double down on that team, and that's a good way to look at it. So with the Yankees, they weren't doing it in April, but I knew that. Here's May, check, 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 continue to double down on them. As far as depth and things like that, they'll find a way. They're the Yankees. The Blue Jays are the team. I had so many X's next to them. I was disheartened. Here come those check marks. Nate Pearson did not have a good start. That troubles and worries me. But on the other side, a lot of these guys are stepping. Look at Marcus Semien. He has an amazing on-base streak that no one is talking about. Vlad Guerrero is coming alive. Bo Bichette's doing what he should do. And Kevin Biggio's bat hasn't even woken up yet, and I'm sure it will. So I'm looking at these odds and seeing there's ways I can make some money here. The cream will always rise to the top, Joe. You know that.
Yeah, and you know what? I like what you're saying, too, of making small incremental investments over time, because that does kind of allow you to have exposure. But at the same time, like you're saying, if you really like one thing that's going well, you continue to double up on it. And I think that is a great way over the long period of time. Let's see how that affects the Central and how you want to do this one, because this one,
check.
You know me. I was White Sox from the beginning of the year, and they were not the favorites. And I said, this is insane. The White Sox should be the favorites. They've lost Luis Robert. They have lost Eloy Jimenez. Yet they still continue to win games, and they are still the consensus favorite, minus 200. Cleveland's at plus 350. Cleveland has a hard time, I feel like, generating runs outside of home runs. If Ramirez and Franmil are hitting outside of that, it's kind of tough for them if they're not hitting dingers. And then the Twins, who, Kenta Maeda struggled. Kirilloff came up for a hot minute and got hot, and then he went on the IL. The Twins' number has dropped all the way to plus 800. Now, that is very tempting because the Twins historically are always around, but I'm still kind of just sticking with the White Sox. I think the time to bet the White Sox is past. Personally, I think it was before the season. What do you think right now? Is there some case you want to make for Cleveland or Minnesota, or is it just already a White Sox division to lose?
How do you know I'm not all in on the Tigers? How do you know I don't think Casey Mize?
You have been hitting the head with a lot of chairs. That's the only thing I know. That is true. That is one.
Hang on, because I'm going to lose my thought because of that. As well as all those other things that happen in college. Okay, Chicago. You talked about losing players, so on and so forth. Yeah, but gaining. Michael Kopech and Dylan Cease have been wonderful. The public is just learning about them. Again, people like you and I, we knew about them. So yes, that money remains what I call true. The true event is there. The team you're seeing, that is the team. Okay? Mm-hmm. Cleveland. Find me anyone that could tell you before a first pitch was thrown to start the season that this was going to be a team that was going to come back and have an astronomical plus run differential in the final 6 innings of every game. They have been the comeback kids along with the Red Sox. All right, the bullpen had problems, and then Class A stepped up, and now everyone is starting to step in line here. Yes, I hear you as far as the offense goes, but nobody saw this team. And if Bieber can continue to do what he does, and Savali, Plesac, some of these guys, Tristan McKenzie's a bright spot, they could be there, man. The AL Central is fickle. Look at the Royals. Did you think they were going to do what they've done in the first half of the season? I know they're riding an 8-game losing streak right now, but still, there's no way you could handicap this division like that, and that's the beauty of baseball. Did I say Clase's name right? I think
you did. It's Clase. You said it in a very Clase way. Yeah. That's all they need. But the Cleveland Indians have the pitching, as you're pointing out, too, and over time, that's what wins out, whereas Minnesota's back of that rotation can be spotty at times, and Maeda hasn't been the same guy he was last year. Well, hopefully last start is that back on track and things are going to go better for him. Let's move to the West for a second and talk about the Athletics, who are even right now on BettingPros. So that's interesting because they went on that incredible tear. And then, of course, like everything in baseball, it's a game of streaks. Yes. You get the highs and the lows, right? The Astros are plus 110, and the Angels are at plus 650 as the BettingPros consensus number. Now, I ask you this, Matt Stryker, 650 right now. The Angels did kind of jettison Pujols, and, Dylan Bundy hasn't been great, but Walsh has been terrific. I know Rendon has the knee issue, but Ohtani and Trout, it's funny. It's like these two giant stars, along with Walsh, have really kind of carried this team. Is this an intriguing number to you at 650? Because the Astros have been a lot of up and down. They can't seem to get everything right at the right time. They get this going, and then that falls apart. Starting pitching's good, the offense goes away. Then you got guys on COVID lists, and all this stuff's going back and forth with them. Are the Angels the sneaky wager in this division right now at 650?
This is going to sound like a terrible answer. It's a great way to start an answer, but putting the Angels in a vacuum, you've got to come back to me after the 6-game stretch that they are on right now. So encouraging to see what they did against the Dodgers. Now they go on a 6-game stretch against teams that are either first or second in their respective divisions, I believe, Boston, Oakland, Cleveland. Watch these games, folks. If you're on the East Coast, so I'm in New York, Queens, New York. So some of these games, you can really see a lot about a team. Look at their bullpens. Look at how they play matchups. Then come back. If this number is still there after the 6-game stretch, which it's not going to be, but if you can find it in a nice, favorable, desirable place. With some pitching, I'm not doing it, but I can see how a lot of people are going to get on this team.
I think it might be, if you like him at all, this is the time.
Okay.
Because after the stretch, if things go well for them in the next, let's say, 6 to 10 games, that number is probably going to get cut in half. I think there's a real good chance that's going to happen. And here's the thing, we mentioned all these American League teams. The Yankees of all these teams are actually in the best position because not only can they afford to pay anybody they want because they're the Yankees, but they have enough depth in that organization to make a move for somebody. Yeah. And that's where I kind of worry about teams like the Angels. I don't know if Joe Adell plus is enough to get a deal done. Maybe it is. There's a couple guys in that system. I'm looking at, the Indian system. They're not going to deal some of these young guys because they're a smaller market team. So the Yankees are kind of in the driver's seat. And obviously they're still the favorite for the American League. And I can understand why, because, again, you control your own destiny if you're the Yankees because you have the best of both worlds and it's not a 60-game season anymore. Now, from the National League standpoint, we're in the East here with the Mets are still favorites at plus 115. I don't know how this is true, but it is. Then you've got the plus 180 with the Braves and the plus 400 with the Phillies. The Nats have clearly struggled here. They haven't been able to get on track, and Strasburg being hurt and Corbin being bad, I just think the Nats have now gone by the wayside. We know it was boom or bust for the Nats. So now there are three. As great as the Marlins pitching is, we're realistic. Now there are three. Phillies, Braves, Mets. The 4-1 Phillies are an interesting wager here because Wheeler's pitched pretty well. Nola's been lights out. But I don't understand how the Braves are not the favorite here. Plus 180, I think this is a great, simple investment. You can put a large number on that. Do you feel confident in the Atlanta Braves in which you've seen? Because guys like Yanoa and Anderson have stepped up when guys like Fried and Morton have struggled.
Braves are the team. I've been saying it since April. They're just built for it. And again, in April, as a bettor, as a gambler, the dogs barked. They ate. It's April. Listen, if it's the first time you're doing this, totally cool. Come along and be our friend because we love that. But there are people that have been doing this for a while that understand it's April. Joe, you and I talked about everyone was all about Francisco Lindor. It's April. He's historically bad in April. Right. What do you mean? The Yankees are an older team. It's April. It's like an older car. Give it a chance to warm up. The Braves are my team here, and I've always said that Enoa has been a great, great revelation for them, both with the bat and with the arm. And yeah, to your point, like Morton hasn't been doing what they thought he would be able to do, at least in the last two starts. Give this whole team time. They're going to be there. And don't count out Washington just yet, man.
Well, I got to eat some crow here in the Central because me, I was very pro Milwaukee going into the year. But now Christian Yelich came back for one day and went back on the IL. I'm out. It's over. I'm out. His lineup is not enough. They didn't do enough outside. And the problem is now, if you don't have Yelich and you're not playing good baseball and you're not scoring runs, it doesn't matter how good the pitching is, because what happens is now you're at a deficit because you can't justify moving more young pieces to bring in more pieces. And it's almost like chicken and the egg. It's like if you don't have Yelich playing well and things are going well, how does the organization justify going out there making a trade for a Trey Mancini or bringing in somebody like that? So right now the Cardinals are plus 110, the Brewers minus 120. The Reds are at 8-1, and I know it's the Reds, and I know they've got a whole host of problems, but they've also got an incredible young pipeline of pitching. Molly's been great. Sonny Gray's been really good. Wade Miley just threw a freaking no-hitter, and Luis Castillo, we all know eventually is going to right the ship. At least I feel pretty confident in that. Then you've got an offense here where Suarez hasn't hit at all. Castellanos has been good. Moustakas, this is a really good team. I know it's a long shot. It feels like the Cardinals division to lose at plus 110, and I think this is going to be a minus number by the time we hit June. So if you like the Cardinals, I think this is your last shot. Do you agree?
Here's the thing about divisional winners. You have to trust your baseball knowledge. And again, if you're just out there listening to this, there's 1,001 shows like this. Let's just be honest.
But none are as good as when you and I are doing it.
But here's the thing, exactly. Who's telling you? Where have they been? What have they done? So you have to look when things are backed up by math. You can't beat that. Okay, I'm sorry, you can't. The Cardinals are built for this division. Everyone knows it. So yes, at some point that number is going to get even, and it might even drop into the minus. So there you go. Sorry.
Love and math always win. There you go. That's what it is. All right, let's hit the West. 2-horse race here. The Dodgers at minus 400 now. That number has been adjusted a little bit after this bad stretch for the Dodgers, just a wee bit. And then you got the Padres at plus 250 here. Now, the Padres are a fascinating team because Snell's pitched poorly,
Yeah.
but Joe Musgrove has kind of given you what you thought Snell was going to give you. I
Mm,
don't know what the heck's going to happen with Lamet and Paddock. I
right.
hope that Paddock comes back healthy and is good. I'm
Yeah.
terrified Lamet's a Tommy John waiting to happen. The good news is they've got some other guys like Weathers, and they've got some other guys like Mackenzie Gore who might be able to step
Yes.
up. But the Padres are all in. The question is, can they catch the Dodgers? I know Bellinger's on his way back. Is this just a stay away here in this division, or do you like the Padres' chances of catching the Dodgers?
Depends on what kind of bettor you are. Are you conservative? Then yeah, sure. Ooh, I don't know. Are you aggressive? Oh, I'm freaking in on everybody. Are you the contrarian? The San Francisco Giants have disrupted everything in that division. The San Francisco Giants have disrupted everything for about the last 45 days in baseball. Just go look at their numbers and tell me that anyone thought they were going to do that. I'm still waiting for the market correction. I personally think it's coming, right? I mean, that's just baseball. Again, guys are always going to do what the back of their baseball card tells you they're going to do, at least 9.5 times out of 10. But the Giants have disrupted everything here now. So look for them to pull and tug on those Padre and Dodger numbers. And if you can catch them where they're being pulled on and it puts you in a good spot, like Joe was talking about, there's ways to get the best line. Take advantage of it, man. Please, being ignorant during the time of information is a choice. Don't make that choice.
I love that. That is good stuff right there. And you're right, man. That Giants pitching, where'd that come from? Alex Wood, Kevin Gossman. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they every night somebody goes out there and they're just, spinning good baseball games despite all the injuries they've had at different times. It's crazy. All right, let's talk about the big one here. Right now, the consensus favorite for the World Series is still the reigning, defending, undisputed Los Angeles Dodgers at plus 325. The Yankees are at 7-1, which I think is a fascinating number. It's a pretty big number right now, consensus wise. It's still early. The Padres at plus 850, who have the pitching in a short series, and they could get very hot. The Mets are at plus 9. And then before we get to the long shots, the other plus 9 is the White Sox. So these are kind of the favorites under 10-1. Where would you put a chip and how would you do it at this point? Have you seen enough out of any team to feel like, I'm confident this team is going to be there through the regular season and is built for the postseason? Who stands out to you?
So when I did my World Series futures, I put 2 chips, one on an AL team, one on an NL team. I didn't have any secondary teams, and it remains the same to this day, and I'm actually getting ready to double back on it. Yankees, Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
They're built to do it. They've been there. They understand it. When everything else falls away, I think that's going to be the World Series.
Well, if you do like that, because right now, the consensus number on the Atlanta Braves, who was the first one in the, quote, long shots, 15-1. Now, the Braves, historically, they've been that great regular season team, but they fail all the time in the short series. What is it about this team that you think is different this year?
You and I have talked about this a lot. The game has completely changed now. It's about having 3 stud starters and then a bullpen and playing matchups. Atlanta had that, at least on paper, in April, and I do believe they still have it. And never rule out that late season acquisition. With that said, when it comes down just to the minutia, to the micro, I just think the organization and the team is better suited than anyone else. And yes, I understand the Dodgers are the chalk, but I'm in this to make money.
Absolutely, baby. That's what we're in. And speaking of making money, where can everybody check out the Bettors Eye? I know it's on every single day now, right? They've actually got you working like 5 days a week. I didn't know that you were a guy to do that kind of thing. It's not work. All right, so what's going on? When is the show every day that people can catch it?
Oh, man, it's awesome. So it's Bettors Eye. It's on MLB.com. It's also on at MLB Picks, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We're live. You never know what any of us are going to say or do. And we do something called walk-off winners. At the end of every segment, we give our best bets for the day. I'm happy to say, man, as of right now, I'm like 10 games over 500. Keith is like 4 or 5 games over 500. We have guests coming in all the time. The guys coming over from Vegas, Vison City. Matt Vescursion's been on the show. It's great to have all those resources there because you have information. And as Newman said, you control the mail. You control information.
There's no way we're getting out of our show together without at least one Seinfeld reference. And all these guests, yet I don't remember being asked to be on this show. I don't know what's going on here.
You keep the friends. I just sit in the chair and nod and smile.
You said at the top of the show, you said your words were, my friend. No invitations for your friend. But again,
I
you
see
can
what
catch.
this was. I see what this was.
This is all
You
just
showed me
ploy.
yours. Now I got to share.
Oh, Lord. On that note, let's remind everybody you can follow Matt on Twitter, even though he doesn't care, at Asleep on the Beach. And you can also, again, check him out on the Bettors Eye every day on MLB.com. And you should also check out Impact Wrestling, where he's calling some fantastic matches with D'Lo Brown. Some really cool stuff going on in Impact right now. And, of course, Matty Stryker, Joey P, Sunday mornings, get a cup of coffee, and watch a little Diamond Bets with Matt Stryker and myself on SportsGrid, 8 a.m. Eastern to 10, 2 hours of baseball talk. Matty, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out today to join us on Betting Pros to talk a little baseball. We'll check in with you again soon. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Matt Stryker, I'm Joe Pisapia. We'll see you next time, kids.